On February 2, 1987, Andrew Miller was born in Lebanon, Pennsylvania. Andrew Miller enlisted into the military February 8, 2011, and served until August 5, 2018. Throughout his 7 years of service, Mr. Miller became very accomplished. He earned the rank of Staff Sergeant and earned several awards and medals in the Army. Mr. Miller currently lives with his wife and their children in La Plata, Maryland. During Mr. Miller's service, he was deployed to Afghanistan and served as an intelligence officer in the battle Operation Enduring Freedom. Two other stations of Mr. Miller's are Fort Sam Houston and Washington, D.C. Before joining the military, Mr. Miller attended Lebanon High School until 2005 when he graduated. After high school, he attended Franklin Marshall College and graduated in 2009. Mr. Miller worked as a research assistant at college, and he had part-time jobs before enlisting. However, Mr. Miller realized this was not what he wanted to do with his life, so at this point, Mr. Miller decided to join the military. When Mr. Miller first signed up to join the military, he was 23 years old. Mr. Miller initially intended to join the U.S. Navy. Unfortunately, Mr. Miller was unable to meet some of the fitness requirements, so as a backup plan, Mr. Miller joined the U.S. Army. When Mr. Miller left for training camp, he only left behind his parents. Mr. Miller is an only child, so leaving his parents was hard. At this point, Mr. Miller was not married yet as well. Mr. Miller did not plan on meeting his wife until after his deployment. However, Mr. Miller would later meet his wife and his kids while at training camp. Before Mr. Miller got deployed, he and his wife got married so that they would be able to stay together. When Mr. Miller left to serve, he was now leaving behind his parents, wife, and 3 astonishing kids. When Mr. Miller would return from his time of service, he and his wife would have another child, a boy. Mr. Miller did his training at the Intelligence Analysis School and the Advanced Intelligence Analysis course at Joint Base San Antonio, Texas, and Joint Base Anacostia Boiling, Washington, D.C. Mr. Miller also met his wife and 3 kids while in Texas. When Mr. Miller finished the months of training, he was ready to go overseas and serve. Mr. Miller would be deployed in the campaign Operation Enduring Freedom located in Bagram Airfield, Afghanistan. He would be located at the Intelligence Center. Mr. Miller would not be protecting anything but was placed by establishing airbase. As any veteran would be, Mr. Miller was filled with different emotions. In Afghanistan, Mr. Miller was given the opportunities to meet great people. Mr. Miller expressed that these friendships are not like any normal type of friendships. While serving, your partners become like your brothers and sisters. The bond you will build with them is unbreakable.
What kinds of friendships did you form while serving, and with whom?
You end up getting very, very close pretty much with anyone that you serve with. So, I have a litany of friends that I still keep in touch with to this day, like I said, from basic training. Shared hardship definitely forms odd bonds between people. So,
Mr. Miller also strongly stressed that the friendships you will build are the best part about military service, and that these friendships are what you get through the bad days. Mr. Miller was also able to keep in touch with his family through email.
How do you stay in touch with your family and friends?
Where I was, we were lucky enough to have computer access, so email was the most consistent way.
Past time, Mr. Miller, along with his partners, would spend lots of time working out. Mr. Miller also expressed how there was not a lot that they could do during this time.
Worked out a lot. You're kind of stuck in a box with not a whole lot to do.
Most days, Mr. Miller would work a 12-hour day, so he was exhausted. Mr. Miller would take some of his free time and rest. Resting was a vital step to getting through each day.
You work a 12-hour shift, and then the rest of it, you can't leave kind of this little box that you're put in. So working out is kind of the best way to get out your frustrations and feel like you're doing something at least a little bit different.
During Mr. Miller's time of serving, he would keep a Bible on him at all times. His parents gave him this mini Bible before he left for training camp. It did not matter where Mr. Miller was, he would always have his Bible with him. Along with carrying his Bible, Mr. Miller would keep a military coin on him as well. Mr. Miller received this coin from a family friend. The coin was called a challenge coin. Was there something you did for good luck?
I had a Bible on me that I kept with me at all times that my parents had given me before I deployed. There was a coin. In the military, they have what they call challenge coins. That basically different units can give out to people who do something noteworthy or remarkable for them.
When Mr. Miller finished his time of being deployed, the airport greeted each and every one of the soldiers coming off of the planes. Mr. Miller reached his final destination with his wife and daughter waiting for him.
My service, when I started terminal leave, I actually left out of Fort Myer, and my wife and my youngest child were waiting for me in the car.
During Mr. Miller's time of service, he earned multiple awards. The awards Mr. Miller received are the Joint Service Commendation Medal, Army Commendation Medal twice, Army Achievement Medal 3 times, Joint Meritorious Unit Award, Joint Meritorious Unit Citation, and Army Good Conduct Medal twice. Since Mr. Miller's time of service, he, his wife, and his 3 kids all moved around for a period of time. Fortunately, Mr. Miller and his family have been living in Maryland for a while now. Mr. Miller and his wife also had another little boy. They currently have 4 kids. The oldest is in middle school, the youngest is in preschool. Mr. Miller currently works at the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. Mr. Miller is grateful for the time that he spent serving. His biggest takeaway from his entire experience would be you do not understand how bad situations really are until you see them for yourself.
I would say just a sense of obligation to those around you more than to yourself. I definitely try to take that in terms of how I view my own personal responsibility to my relationships, to my wife and kids. I hope that the military instills in them the sense of, rigor and discipline and service and everything that they continue to, at least when I was in. Even while I was in, you could tell the difference in terms of generational perspectives, or you would get the old grizzled vets of this would never be how it was back in my day, and I don't think you're ever going to be able to get around that. But hopefully the service remains this bastion where even if they have to change how they do things, that they can keep their values intact.
Mr. Miller did an excellent job while serving for our country, and we thank him for his service.